Hey, welcome back to Two Super Guys Trade Stocks. I am Dylan.
And I'm Vinny. And today, for us Alibaba bulls, today was a pretty good day. I'm not going to lie. We're going to talk a little bit about the news and kind of give our stupid half-assed take on this.
And Jim Cramer said something crazy.
Two Super Guys Trade Stocks.
So the main question in this presentation, would Charlie Munger approve of the news that was announced today? That's how you have to frame it in your own mind, I think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're going to get into the news. If you would have told me the news and not showed me the graph, because, I logged into my account and I'm like, why is Bob up so much? This is dope. And then I read the news. I would have not thought this would have happened. I would have thought the opposite would have happened. I
Yeah.
I don't think this is 14% worth of good news. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. So, it was across every major news, like a financial news reporting agency today. All of them had it covered this, basically talking about the breakup of Alibaba. Just going to take a pair of scissors and just slice the company up into little pieces, and what are they going to do with it from there? I don't know.
Yeah, I once again, that doesn't sound good, but let's look at the details.
So I think it's tactical, right? There are kind of case scenarios where it makes sense. The main kind of article I'm gonna show some clips from here is from the South China Morning Post, which is owned by Alibaba. I don't know which unit they're going to be in actually, which is like an interesting question.
And it definitely
um,
won't be biased.
yeah, 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 exactly. So they're basically going to reorganize this holding unit structure where you're going to have the parent company, Alibaba Group. Daniel Zhang will remain chairman of the board there, the current CEO. But you're going to have all these, sub-segment businesses going to be kind of like broken up a little bit more and have their own CEO and board of directors. He's actually going to take over as the CEO and CEO for the Alibaba Cloud unit, of which he just in the last quarterly report announced that he was becoming the president of that unit as well. So this is kind of a continuation of that transition where he's going to be spending more, kind of his time, it seems like, on Alibaba Cloud growth, which is interesting because it's the unit that people have the highest hopes for long term, right?
Right. Yeah, he can be singularly focused now, which you would think would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, he's still going to be the chairman of the actual Alibaba Group, the one that owns everything. That would be the overseer, but he's going to be spending, theoretically more of his time on the actual Alibaba Cloud unit. Um, so these are kind of the units that they're going to break into. The Cloud Intelligence Group, that's like I said, that's what Daniel's going to take over. E-commerce, the retailer that Charlie Munger talked about and regrets buying, become its own separate unit here. K now, which is their logistics operations unit. Then they have local services, Global Domestic Business Group. Don't know if honestly know what that one does. And final digital media, that's always a tiny little portion of the revenue. They're not really a media conglomerate, but it is a space that they play in a little bit.
Right.
So, the whole idea behind this is, he's kind of hinting at the fact that Alibaba has just become this massive behemoth. It's no longer a aggressive startup that's over 20 years old now at this point, over 200,000 employees. They need to do these things to be more agile and kind of compete a little bit better with, smaller other players in the industry there.
So, okay, I have two takeaways from this. One,
Mm-hmm.
I agree when you're a giant, like, corporate company, like, for instance, I work for a large corporate company, and for me, just not taking a lunch and getting off 30 minutes sooner is like a very easy thing to do. It's been in contemplation for 2 months. Like it's not a hard decision and it's very, very easy. But when you work for a giant corporate company, God, shit is
Yeah.
slow. Like, come on. Like, this is
Yeah.
not difficult. Like, and then
Yeah.
you end up having someone, not at my company, but you end up having someone make a decision on something they should not be making a decision about because they're 5 steps removed, right?
Yeah.
Now, the counterpoint to that is Amazon. All right.
Okay.
Amazon is incredibly, incredibly efficient. And you could make the argument that maybe these people just suck at delegation.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Yeah, I'm kind of bloated over time. That's a lot of things that Meta has talked about efficiency and eliminating a lot of middle managers and that sort of thing. I think you're seeing that across the board, and this is just a reflection of that where we are in the economic cycle, that we're in a kind of tightening phase a little bit as far as like within the companies themselves. We had a massive phase of growth, and now companies are having to trim back a little bit, and this is will allow them to do that on a more nimble basis, right? So ultimately, I think this is a good thing. 15% in one day is pretty ridiculous, but
Yes.
still overall a good thing. Now, the article just points right at Google here. I don't know if if Google did this similarly. It's called Alphabet Inc. Right? Is the official name of the company now, the holding company.
Yeah, but it's not 6 different stocks. Because from what I understand, it could be 6 IPOs or it could not be. We don't really know right now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's actually something we probably should talk about. So initially, no, right? Initially, nothing's going to really change from a Alibaba shareholder perspective, from what I'm understanding here. But each unit, if it decides it needs to raise outside capital, would be able to do that.
Right.
And then you kind of have the question of eventually, say a unit takes on so much outside capital that it's no longer 51% owned by Alibaba Group, and then would become a not a a majority owned subsidiary, but it would actually just become more like Ant Group, where they own a financial stake in them, but
Right.
it's not directly reported. So in theory, that could happen, but I mean, you're talking about a phase where IPOs are distasteful to say the least, right?
For now,
IPO has been put off for 2 years, so at
but
some
5
point,
years from now, not
right?
now. No one wants IPO right now. That would be a very bad idea. But
And
5 years from now, that could happen.
it completely could. Yeah, it definitely could. That is very reasonable. But I think it'll only be done if it's prudent and right. You're going to be unlocking more value at that point because you're going to basically be owning shares within like this pre-IPO company. If
Right.
that segment does indeed do an IPO, so you'd be able to get them at a discount of what ultimately the market
True.
values them at. And no one goes to market expecting it to be valued less than what it's when it's held as a entity under this corporate umbrella. So it should be bring cash back into the system, if you will, a little bit towards Alibaba shareholders. So, the kind of just a couple of general thoughts here I had about bullish or bearish is, better growth potential, right? Smaller units, maybe potentially nimbler, maybe a little bit more aggressive.
I do agree. They're
Um,
probably nimbler. That's probably
yeah,
true.
exactly. I mean, some of all parts valuation, in some cases, each individual unit, if it were its own entity, would be valued at more, right? Look at Alibaba Cloud, you'd have to put a value on what that would be if it were its own separate business, right? That's the kind of the question. How much of the business would that be worth, if you will?
Yeah. And how much oversight has the CCP had in this, or were they involved at all? We have no idea. I don't know if we'll ever know, actually.
We'll never know. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll never know. But I mean, that's certainly a question. A little bit distrustful of CCP based on prior moves, but that is a very valid concern. Like, did they force Alibaba to a degree to do this, or did Alibaba do this tactically to help, hopefully, appease and avoid future issues with the CCP by making many smaller parts and hopefully be a little bit less of a lightning rod, a little bit less of a kind of an issue going forward where they're attracting a lot of attention in terms of negative sentiment from the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah. It will be interesting to track the cloud segment, right? Because that's been the biggest underperformer, in my opinion, under the giant cloud that is Alibaba. And now that there's a dedicated segment where it's like, this is, you got to show some improvement. It'd be kind of cool. Because you could easily just
Yeah,
take like the last 5 years, compare the next 2 or 3 years, and see if it's working.
I will be watching the next financial report with bated breath, as they say. It's only 3% revenue growth in the last one, so like they can do better than that, absolutely. And I expect them to start stepping those numbers up. I want to see some damn double digits out of that unit at least. Okay, um, and if you really want approval of this transaction
Yeah.
as gonna take it to the bank, probably gonna go to $1,000 a share. We have Mr. Jim Cramer himself here saying that this is a sucker move where they're just trying to take more money from the Americans. So clearly, this is a genius move, and they're playing 3D chess, and Cramer's over here playing with his toes.
This is this is a stamp of approval for a buy signal, right? This is the number one buy signal in American stock market. This Jim Cramer
Yeah,
saying it's great, or it's
Yeah,
bad.
yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, especially in the most recent like week, basically, where he's talked about several banks that have just collapsed over the last couple weeks.
Yeah. Man, there's got to be someone who's kept like a track record of all of his stuff, right? That's got to exist somewhere. Because, yikes.
Yeah, there's an inverse Cramer ETF now, and I don't know what the performance so far has been, but there is an inverse Cramer ETF.
Okay, that's dope. Man, that's rough. All right.
Hey, and if you want to use some of your Alibaba winnings from the day, you can pick up one of these lovely Alibaba bag holder T-shirts.
I was bad. I just got home. I'm not wearing mine.
All right, guys. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right, later, guys.